Am I wrong for doing nothing for a child my ex-wife had from her affair, even now that I have primary custody of our kids? As a divorce attorney, I'm going to explain exactly why this father is not wrong, but if you disagree with me, make sure you're commenting down below. 6 years ago, I, 36 male, learned that my ex-wife, 37 female, was cheating on me. I ended our marriage and I filed for divorce, but everything was delayed because she was pregnant. That sucks. Why does everything have to be delayed? Because she's pregnant. Oh, we know why. Let's get into it. Once her child was born and it was established that I was not the biological father, my name was removed from the birth certificate and the bio father's name was added. They were a couple at this point. Now you may be asking, why was his name on the birth certificate if he knows that he was not the father of the child? The reason for that is because they were married at the time. Under California law, if you are a husband and you are married at the time of conception and the time that the child was born, then you are legally presumed to be the father, and you have to prove that you are not the father in order for you not to be legally responsible for the child. What? And the hospitals will not allow you to put someone else's name on the birth certificate if you are married to someone else who is not the father. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that his name had to go on the birth certificate, so I'm not sure why that happened. But whether his name was on the birth certificate or not, he would legally be considered the father because the child was conceived during the marriage, the wife was having an affair, and the child was technically born during the marriage because they were still going through the divorce, meaning that they're still legally married. I know it's crazy, but it's the law. I don't make the rules. Throughout the divorce, we shared 50-50 custody of our 3 children together. My kids were old enough to figure out what happened. I got them therapy eventually after my ex resisted putting them in therapy, and we had talks about everything. That is a good father, making sure that they get the help that they need, because that is traumatizing. Your mom just out here cheating in these streets. I did my best to reassure them that they didn't need to hate anyone for me or reject anyone on my behalf. But the relationship with their mom never recovered, and the relationship with her youngest never existed from what I know. And that's some things that a lot of parents don't consider when they do cheat on their spouse. Their kids will form their own opinions. The other parent doesn't have to tell them. Now, there are situations where the other parent is dragging the other parent through the mud. But in a lot of situations, if the kids are old enough, they'll eventually figure it out and they'll form their own opinions. Usually their opinions, if you're the one that cheated, is that they don't like you anymore. The affair partner took off 3 years ago, and since then, my ex has requested that I take an active part in her child's life because I'm so involved in our kids' life. Now, he has no obligation to do that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Each and every time she has made this request via the parenting app, I have firmly said no. She tried to take full custody of our kids because I refused to include her youngest, and a judge told her that it didn't work like that and I did not have a legal responsibility to her youngest child. Remember, in the divorce, it was established that he was not the father and his name was taken off the birth certificate, so he does not have any legal obligation to this child. If they did not establish this during the divorce, he would be legally responsible for this child, which would suck really bad. I ended up with primary custody of my children a year ago because my ex-wife made some bad decisions and not only lost the house she was staying in, but lost her job, had no savings, and overall was left with next to nothing. After this happened, her request for me to do something for her child increased. I ignored them for the most part and did as I was instructed to do by my lawyer and replied to the ones that indicated I was responsible for ensuring that the child was adequately cared for, because he is not responsible for this child, and he made sure to put that in writing to make it clear that he is not holding this child out as his own and that he should be considered responsible for them. Because yes, that's a thing too. Those I did say no to and reminded her that there were places she can go if she needed help feeding her youngest. There are resources to help you when you are struggling, so that's nice of him to refer her to those resources because he is not the resource. Our kids must still go to her house for her every other weekend visitation, and they hate it, which angers my ex because they have zero relationship with her youngest, and it angers her that I won't ensure that all of the kids have a good relationship and that her youngest knows what it's like to have a fatherly figure, because that's not his responsibility. It's her responsibility to make sure her kids all have a good relationship or a relationship at all. She is the one that picked a bad father for that other child. He is not responsible for this. She said she would allow me to adopt her child if I was willing. Really? You're just gonna give your kid away? Like, girl, that's not how this works. He already jumped through hoops to prove that he wasn't the father in the divorce. Why would he then adopt the child that he has no relationship with? Then she said she would at least like me to do something, to express some care for her child, send birthday and Christmas gifts, send food occasionally, offer to let her child join in on some activities. No, he doesn't have to do any of that. Now, would it be nice if he allowed the child to come on some activities to spend time with the siblings? Sure, but it doesn't seem like the siblings have a relationship with the child anyways, and he doesn't want to, and he doesn't have to, and he has no obligation to do so under the law. I do none of this. I have asked my kids if they would like to spend more time with their half siblings or give gifts, but they have always said no. And they told me when they can make the decision to not go to their mom's house, they won't have anything to do with the other child either. My ex has become more angry because there are things her child has missed out on, and apparently they ask more questions now. Some of her messages on the app are now extremely hostile. There's nothing I can do about this at the moment, but they're saved, so if we end up back in court, they can be shown. She told me that I act like I'm such a good person, but I treat a child badly. But it's not his child, so why does she expect him to treat the child up on this high pedestal? I don't feel bad exactly. I know I would have a very hard time being around this child, and they're innocent. So I prefer to stay away and not let them feel the weight of my issues with their mother and how they were conceived. But maybe that makes me an awful person. I know at the end of all this is a child who has only got my ex and nobody else, and the child is innocent like I stated. So, am I wrong? If you haven't already, make sure you guys are commenting down below whether you think that this father is wrong in not including this child in the activities with his other 3 children when his ex-wife had an affair and had this child. As you know, I am a California attorney, so we are going to be talking about this in the context of California law. And remember, this is not legal advice. This is just my opinion based on my experience. And if you have a similar situation, make sure you're consulting with an attorney in your area. Now let's jump into the analysis. This father has done absolutely everything right. As I explained earlier, had he not established that he was not the legal father in the beginning when they were going through the divorce, he would be legally obligated to this child whether he wanted to or not. And the funny thing is, he would only have had 2 years to contest this. So it seems like he contested this immediately and made sure to establish that this child was not his. So therefore, he has no legal obligation to this child. Now, would it be nice if he included the child? Sure, of course it would be nice. But he does not have any responsibility to this child, and his own 3 children do not want anything to do with this child. Now, I have seen situations where people go on to have other children, or they have another child during an affair, and the other parent will still include them in activities with all the children together. But if you have a situation where even the children don't want to be around this child, why would a parent go out of their way to include this extra child when they had nothing to do in creating the child? And that's more of a moral compass issue. I don't think he's wrong morally or legally. Let me know what you guys think. If you haven't already, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the next one where we talk about the opposite, where the mom refused to share custody of the children with the father.